Hello, all, and welcome to the Black History Month Chapel. Today, members of the Black Affinity Group have volunteered to share their experiences as a Black person at Westminster, the United States, and the world at large. This chapel is structured in a similar manner to the roundtables Mr. Rashid, Mr. Hughley, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Pringle have held in this past winter term. But before our first question, members of the Black Affinity Group will introduce themselves. My name is Olatunji Osha Williams. I'm a sixth form boarder from Manchester, Connecticut.
My name is Gabe Charleston. I'm a sixth form boarder from Cromwell, Connecticut.
I'm Priscilla Amiel. I am a fifth form boarder from Ghana.
My name is Ariel Sadu. I'm a fifth form boarder from New Jersey.
Hi, I'm Andrea Warwick, and I'm a sixth form boarder from Brooklyn, New York.
Hi, my name is Natalie Charles, and I'm a sixth form boarder from New Jersey.
Hi, my name is Daniel Edwards. I'm a third form day student from Rocky Hill, Connecticut.
Hi, my name is Jemaine Miller. I'm a fifth form boarder from Jamaica.
And for our first question, according to Britannica.com, code switching is the process of shifting from language or dialect to another, depending on the social context or conversational setting. Social linguists, socio-psychologists, and identity researchers are interested in the ways in which code switching, particularly by members of minority ethnic groups, is used to shape and maintain a sense of identity and a sense of belonging to a larger community. What does code switching mean to you, and how have you had to exhibit that at Westminster and the world at large?
I know for a lot of people, code switching means having to change themselves between different groups of people. You know, the way that you talk, the way that you speak, the way that you act, in order to be more palatable or to be easily understood. And for me, that quite literally means having two separate domains. Coming from a country that has a very different culture and a very different way of speaking English, it's very difficult sometimes to know that I have to, in a sense, turn on a switch once I step onto Westminster. But thankfully, it comes subconsciously a lot of the time. But what a lot of people don't really realize about code switching is that it's never 100% perfect. So for me, there's never a time when I can 100% speak like a Jamaican or speak 100% like someone at Westie. So it always bleeds through, and it's like an example in conversations with my friends, they have to like ask a second time, oh, what did I say? And I realized, oh, I probably had too thick of an accent. Maybe I should change this or try to sound more American. And with that, it definitely causes like pressure from both sides, like my Westminster side and my Jamaican side. But for me personally, I feel more pressure from my Jamaican side. Having them hear me speak how I speak at Westminster, it's kind of funny to them, so I get made fun of a lot, and no one likes to make fun of, so I feel an immense pressure to try to speak more Jamaican at home so that no one says anything. But here, it happens more subconsciously. So yeah, just to define it, it's having to switch yourself to feel more comfortable or to feel like you're better heard. Anyone else?
For me, it's like also not just like geographical changes, but even like being in the US, sometimes when I talk to my friends who are also like from Right to Dream, it's like hard to, talk to them because it's like, oh my God, like you've only been to the States like 3 years and you're already like talking different and things like that. And I'm like, I know I'm supposed to like, keep the ethnicity stuff going, but then it's also going to make it hard to like let people understand you like in a predominant white school. So that also happens. It's not just like geographical stuff. Like sometimes you don't even realize it, but then it still happens.
Yeah. All right, so going off of what Priscilla said, basically, I would say like code switching is used as like a survival mechanism in a way. Basically, I don't personally have to use it, but like I've seen other kids have to use it here. me coming from the suburbs, from like predominantly white town, like I'm not used to like usually code switching. I just have like regular personality. I'm just the wacko Gabe that you guys all know, the energetic Gabe. But yeah, so yeah, so code switching. Yeah, so it's more of a survival mechanism for me, I would say, and others. But yeah.
Yeah, kind of jumping off what Gabe said, like code switching has become like a survival mechanism. Like I've lived in predominantly black neighborhoods and predominantly white neighborhoods. And kind of like Jamae, my mom grew up in the Caribbean, so she has a very thick accent. There's different mannerisms, different lingos, but as soon as I like step out the car into Westminster campus, instantly I don't even have to think about it. My just tone changes, my attitude changes, because like I know that to be here I cannot talk with the accent that I would talk with my mom, or that I can't use the same lingo because I just need it to survive. And even when I go home, it's weird because sometimes I try to talk to her with like her lingo and she's like, "Oh my God, you sound so American." I'm like, well, I can't really do nothing about it. It just happens subconsciously. But yeah, and sometimes when you code switch too much, it like turns into an identity crisis that you don't know which one is the real you, because, and honestly, all you're just trying to do is survive.
For me personally, I came to the States when I was 6, and I kind of made the conscious decision to code switch because like going to classes, like little kids can be mean. So I needed to learn to be more American. So through watching TV shows and stuff, I picked up on like American mannerisms and the American accent to make life easier for myself. But one thing that I subconsciously like did was, there's a difference between being like a black person from Trinidad and a black person like who grew up in America. And I didn't even realize that there are certain things I started saying or doing to fit in more with Black Americans. And then when I came to Westie, like switching again to fit in more with like white Americans. And so there's like so many like little things that happen depending on who you're around. Even like when I'm at Westie, how I talk with the people on stage would be different than how I talk with like the girls in my dorm. And it becomes difficult because you're constantly being aware of what you're saying and how you're saying it. And you feel like you can't just have fun. You're always kind of like in your head about certain things. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really resonate with what Andrea said about how it's different to be a Black American versus a Caribbean American. Both of my parents are Haitian immigrants, and I was born in New Jersey. So like, there's definitely like a cultural rift between us where like I'll go to school. I mean, I've always grown up in predominantly white places, but when I'm with my Black friends, my Black American friends, I'll go to school, pick up the lingo, and come home, and then there's already that language rift between us because my parents did not teach me Creole. I had to pick it up myself. And then also me coming home sounding more American, sounding more like a Black American. It's this really uniquely Black struggle, and particularly for first generation Black children, like, and having to separate yourself from your cultures, like everywhere you go. And for me, a lot of my life has kind of felt like I've been in this minstrel show, like I'm always performing. And it's really tiring, as I'm sure like a lot of Black people can agree. It's like Ariel said, it's an identity crisis. And I think there's a lot more conversation around it now than ever, but still it's kind of a shame that people have to turn to the survival instinct, especially in places like Westie when we're supposed to be welcomed.
Yeah, and I also feel like a lot of people code switch to not get stereotyped or made fun of, because just being Black in general outside of Westie too is difficult. Like it's like a target on your head, so you're always aware of your surroundings and what's happening.
I think for me, I think code switching, or at least trying to being forced to assimilate into a society, I think that for me, I think that really manifests itself with my hoodie and when it rains. Like in 2012, I believe Trayvon Martin was killed. As many people in this audience know, it was a deeply impactful event for me, and I know a lot of other people because, I mean, I was young, and I still am young. I'm not like 36, but around that time, I just started like taking the bus home, and I just started like walking by myself to the convenience store. And I remember my mother distinctly having this conversation with me, and she was like, you shouldn't really wear a hoodie out when you're in public because black boys are getting killed for wearing hoodies in public. And it's not simply because you're wearing a hoodie, it's simply because you're black male and you're perceived as a threat. And that's why for me, I find myself, because I do live in a predominantly white town, and at Westminster too, not wearing my hoodie a lot, or at least not when I'm just walking alone on campus, because I kind of have to alternate between this like being myself and then being hyper vigilant of who and what people perceive me as. And even though I'm not a threatening person at all, I know that that doesn't come across to, I think, a lot of the population in general. And so I think that that's in itself kind of code switching in a way. Questions? And so for our second question, in that similar vein, it's, who are you other than your skin color?
Who am I other than coloring the skin color or carrying the skin color? Basically, I'm a person that carries a legacy from my ancestors. I'm a person that basically wants to show the beauty of my skin color and show who I am. And yeah.
For me, it's just like not even just focusing on skin color for a moment. It's all about like what we all want to do to help this world. It's like we shouldn't let skin color define like whether this person gets access to this or not. Like we're all the same people. We got like pretty much the same blood. So it's just, I don't know, like us working together. And I don't want it to be like, oh my God, like you don't get to do this because you're black. Like that is only like the difference, but pretty much everything else is the same. So.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty much the same as any regular person, but because of my skin color, I've always been told like you have to work harder than the rest, you have to be better than the best so that you can be seen as kind of on the same level, because just because you are a different skin tone, no matter if you're as smart as them or smarter than them, you're going to be perceived as less just because of your skin tone.
For me, this question's kind of like, I don't even know. It's just, I know that I'm more than my skin color, but I just feel like, especially at Westy, I don't get to be, if that makes sense. Like, I don't just get to be a student. I don't just get to be having like a chapel. I don't just get to be in the play. Like, that my skin color always comes in front of it. Like, I'm a black student at Westy, and there's a lot of things that comes along with that. I'm a black student in Kelter, and there's a lot of things that comes along with that. And so like when I get my schedule on like the week, like first, like before we come back to school, like I'm texting all my friends, like, are you in this class? Like, what block is it? Because you're praying that you're not the only like student of color in that one classroom. And like if I'm like having a conversation in my dorm, there's always something that's said that I'm like, oh, maybe don't say that, or that makes you uncomfortable, and you have to like be policing people. But I don't want to have to be the race police in every situation that I'm in. I don't want to have to be censoring myself to make other people more comfortable, but I can't do that and be a student, you know? So.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrea, because I really resonated with what you said. Andrea and I have been the only black girls in the sixth form since our freshman year, and probably a lot of people did not realize that, but it's something that we've been very conscious of. And I also really resonate with what you said about having to censor yourself. But for me, I think I've made myself like a very visible person to talk to about race and racial topics. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm involved in several organizations. I'm pretty active. But there are also times where like I'm 18 and I just turned 18 yesterday. I'm still very much a child. And for a lot of non-Black people, like talking about these topics of like Black people getting killed or systemic oppression, which, you know, is of course related, they're just like academic topics. There are turkey term subjects, you know, but for me, it's like, I see Tamir Rice and I see myself, because when he was killed, he was 12 and I was 11. When I turned 18 yesterday, I thought of Nia Wilson, who was murdered by a white supremacist in California. And then so many people come to talk to me about race just completely off the cuff, like I'm just trying to eat my mashed potatoes in the dining hall, and someone's trying to talk to me about like economic oppression, and it's just like, I'm not an econ major, I'm an 18-year-old, and it's really hard to just be a student, it's really hard to just be a teenager when people see you as your skin color, but at the same time, like, I don't know who I would be if I'm not Black, and I'm really thankful for that. Like, I don't know if I want to say that like I'm not defined by my skin color, because I am. Because of my skin color, I've been forced into these positions of being like hyper independent really young, or like just a lot of Black kids can relate to being like adultified, like when they're like 8 years old, suddenly like you can take on the pressures of the world of being a Black person in America or anywhere in the world. And that's not true. Like, you're still very much a child. But because of those things, I've been like able to become a much more empathetic person, and a person who's passionate and compassionate, and all these other like amazing things that I really like about myself because of my skin color. So it's really hard to walk the lines of where you separate the two. And I don't know if I really want to, because I think Natali and Black Natali and Westminster Natali and Natali anywhere in the world is beautiful and worthy of being celebrated. And I would say the same for everyone on this panel.
Thank you, Natali. And I agree. I feel like I'm a hard worker and a go-getter, but I agree with Andrea that even anywhere, there's always like Black attached to your name. Like I'm more than just Black and like Daniel. Like I'm Daniel, but I know I'm Black. But I like want to live a normal life other than having the pressure of being Black like since a young age. And I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. There's always that pressure of like, oh, what to do when you're with your brother and you get pulled over, or what to do if you get stopped in like the grocery store by a white person, and how to talk to them and what to do. And it's just a lot of pressure from a young age that I have to deal with that.
I think it's a very interesting question because of those last two answers. It's very hard to separate being yourself and being Black, especially in the social and political climate of the United States these days. And I remember for me, I was in Jamaica and finished my last year of school there, and was so excited to come to boarding school in a new country, in a new place, just to have that experience. And I was talking with all my friends who were also going to either boarding school here or in other countries, and I just wanted to be excited like a regular child, but my parents felt the need to sit me down and have a conversation with me about my skin color and the United States in general, and had to beg me to be very careful if I want to walk to, let's say, a Starbucks in the town, or go somewhere by myself, or I should never be alone. And that put that made me down. It really took away a lot from the experience of becoming excited to go to boarding school, because I had an extra thing to worry about that I couldn't control because of my skin color. And I think it's kind of sad that a lot of parents, especially in this country, have to tell themselves that they have to have that conversation with their child. As Daniel said, if you get pulled over with your friend, what to do in that situation. The fact that that's a very real and present conversation just answers the question, what does it mean to be something other than your skin color? And it basically just says that it limits a lot of your experiences and makes you have to worry about other things. So.
I've been really thinking about something that Ariel said earlier, I believe for the last question about like having to live with the pressures of like being Black and excellent. Like you have to go above and beyond. And I know as like a program kid, and I'm from NJ Seeds, which is like a program that helps place like students of color and low income students at like boarding schools and private schools. Like they like constantly told us like, don't play yourself when you go to these schools. Like people will see you as your skin color, and like they will see you as a monolith. So if you mess up, like they won't take any more program kids, and then like you're closing off opportunities for like the rest of these kids who like would be just as good as you at these schools. And it's a lot of pressure. And in relation to this question, I don't know. I know that who I am and my skin color are so intertwined, and I don't want to take that away. But I would say that like the one thing that I really want is to be Black and to be just as bad as anyone else and have that not be a problem. Like I want to be able to be Black and make a mistake. And I think particularly at Westy, I have like a real reputation for like being like intense or knowing what I want, and being like very verbose. And I think that in some ways it's been really isolating because people view me as this person who like can't make a mistake or like is super reliable. But like this has been like a tough year for a lot of people, but this has been a tough year for me, and I've been making a lot of mistakes. And it's kind of, my Blackness definitely does like play a part in people thinking like, oh, like Natali doesn't make mistakes. Natali doesn't like not turn in her homework. Like Natali needs a break. Natali needs a nap. And I just want that for myself to be able to make mistakes. And I want that for a lot of the other Black students here.
Just kind of jumping off on that. I know we had like earlier in the winter, we had like an advisory discussion about this. And for me, like, I don't want to say it was funny, but it was quite eye-opening seeing some of my peers being like shocked almost by the state of like our country and being like, I didn't know that. And I think a part of growing up Black in America and all over the world is that you're always so aware of everything that's going on around you, and you don't get a like time to just be a kid. Like I feel like as soon as you're old enough to be conscious, like your parents or the people around you are being sure that you know what's going on, you know the risks around you. And so I think that's like another thing about like being Black is that like that opportunity to be a kid and make mistakes is cut very short. Like 6, 7, 8 years old is when you need to be aware of so many horrible things going on in the country, because that could be you experiencing those horrible things. Like Tamara Rice was 12 with a water gun. Like you can't even have fun in the summer with your friends without being seen as a threat. And so I feel like that's like a little privilege that you don't even realize that like you have. It's like being able to just be a kid for as long as you can, like be in high school and make those mistakes and have fun without it being life-threatening.
Yeah, kind of adding on to what Andrea said and what Natali said, like you're constantly looked at and judged at like very critically. Like sometimes if I'm home and I'm just going to run an errand with my mom, I would want to throw on some sweatpants and a sweatshirt. And my mom's like, no, like you cannot look, like you always have to look presentable at all times. Like you never know what's going to happen. You can't look like a bum. She's very exaggerate. Like she likes to call me a bum, but like I can't do normal things without being aware that if I look like this, maybe I might fit this stereotype. Kind of like what Natali said, like, I feel like I'm not really allowed to have a bad day. Like, if I have a bad day and I just want to be mad at the world or something, I cannot do that because I don't want to fit into that stereotype of the angry Black woman. Like, I feel like I always have to, like, be nice. And sometimes I may not want to.
I've been thinking about, excuse me, about this question a lot, as all the other panelists, is that the right word? Panelists have said so. Who am I other than my skin color? I believe I'm creative, determined, versatile, and a whole other list of adjectives I could throw out there. But one thing that I think has defined my experience at Westminster that everyone else on this platform has talked about is that I'm still black, but I'm still viewed as black at Westminster. And I think being not just a student, but being a black student at Westminster, that has, I think one of the key things that has kind of influenced and defined that experience for me is names. Namely, no pun intended, well, it's like my chapel talk, but there's this experience that I think a lot of people on the stage can relate to is being called someone else, even though you look nothing like the person. And sure, it can be funny at times, at least when we're joking about it, but the hilarious part about that is how ridiculous it is and how common it is for me to be confused with a graduating senior or a senior that just graduated like 3 weeks ago as I'm leaving strength and conditioning with a friend. And this senior looks nothing like me. We play different sports, we do different things, we hang out in the same friend group, but the only one thing that linked us was that we were black. And I think that's for the person that made that mistake or whatever you call it, or that assumption, or that just, I don't know, it's for them to really kind of dig in and figure out, because it's happened not just with one person, it's happened with a lot of people, like people in this room as well. And it's probably happened for faculty members too. And I think it's for those people to kind of go into their minds and think, why, even though these three people are completely different, they have different personalities, different ways of living, they're from different places, why do I still confuse them? And why can't I get their name right? And I think that's one of the biggest parts about my personal experience at being black at Westminster, because sometimes I can't be anything other than my skin color. And I think that's really kind of shaped my experience in this place. We have some time left for our final question. And our closing question is really, what is your idea of progress in terms of race relations at Westminster School and the United States at large?
For me, like, not to sound like anything right now, but I feel like there's been just little progress. That is me being honest with everybody right now. Like, we can always do more. It's like the only time people of color kind of get acknowledged is like Black History Month. And to be honest with you, that is not enough. And at this point, like, it's not just like a specific group that has to like kind of make things right. It's everybody's like problem at this point. It's not just the US, it's not just at Westie, it's like everywhere. We all have to like one way or the other find means and ways to like support like the minority groups like however we can. So please, let's just like have it at the back of our minds. At the end of this chapel, it's up to you to make a change. What is it gonna be? It's up to you to decide.
Yeah, I think we're progressing, but very slowly, taking very small steps when I think we most likely, like definitely, could take larger steps. I know New Jersey recently passed a law to teach African American history in every grade all the way through high school, and I think like that's a good step because, you know, African American history is still American history. Like a lot of time history classes likes to focus on like European history or like different history like around the world, but they don't really focus on what actually happened in their own country. They kind of skip over it or glaze over it and try to make it sound as if it wasn't that bad. Like up to this day, I'm still finding out more stuff that happened to our people that is still shocking to me. And I'm like, why have I never learned this before? Like I would see pictures of like Martin Luther King and I like realized that they put the pictures in black and white to make it seem like it was that like so long ago, but in reality it wasn't. It was only like not that long ago. Like
Yeah, kind of jumping off what Ariel said, the first time that I've had a class surrounded with like Black literature and Black history was this year with an elective. And that was something that I decided to do. It wasn't a requirement or that everyone got to experience it. And like, for me, I want to see not like fake progress, like the turkey term where we all like had 3 weeks of like Black history and like our history classes and stuff. Like, it's a good first step, like it's cute, but what is that? Like, are we doing that again next year? Like, is that something that we are going to see in 5 years, or was it something to not end up in like an Instagram post, or was it something to like look good for when the climate's been like so heated? Like, is it another trend, or is it something that we're actually like trying to make better? Be like, I don't know. I just feel like it's too early to tell with a lot of these things, but I think that we can do better and we should be doing better.
To go off what Andrea said, I think Westy is a really old institution and we have been integrated for a while, but I feel as though the Black experience and the non-Black experience at Westy are still very separate. And I think for me, what progress at Westminster would look like is the Black experience not being a supplement and the Black experience not being taught born out of tragedy and death, because that's not the only thing that it means to be Black. Like, I think a lot of people are like, I'm Black, but it's really, I'm Black and, you know, I'm Black and I'm nurturing, I'm Black and I'm creative, I'm Black and I'm worthy of being learned about. And like Ariel said, a lot of our history has like not been taught. Like, yes, of course, you learn about slavery, you learn about Reconstruction, you learn about Jim Crow, but those are just like 50,000 feet, like flybys. Like, there's so much of the nuance that we really miss. And I think that's like really a summation of the Black experience, like missing the nuance, missing the fact that I'm a Black person, you know, and that I have like a full life and a full personality. So at Westy, I think the best thing that people could do is to not just have conversations in classrooms, because the Black experience is not just about academia as well. Like, again, it's Black and it's a semicolon, not a period. Like, yeah, it's great that we're having these conversations now, again, born out of Black tragedy and maybe just for aesthetic purposes. But in the future, where will they go? Because like, we live near Hartford, we live near Waterbury, I believe. I'm not an expert at Connecticut geography, which are both cities with like predominantly Black populations who live in like low income situations. And I can say that we live in relative opulence at this school. Like, we are all very fortunate and privileged, which I think that everyone here knows. And it's important to be having these conversations, but what are we doing with these conversations? Like Priscilla said, where are we going to go after this chapel talk has ended or after this year has ended? And I think that everyone needs to think about that a bit more.
I feel like with the Black Lives Matter movement that we've started to make a very small progression, but I feel like that the deaths of many people shouldn't have happened for us to just be having this now, and this should have happened like a long time ago. And recently I saw a video of people like talking about how people should get over slavery, and I feel like that's just like not a thing that can happen, because though slavery is not happening now, we're still like feeling it today with like redlining and other things like that, and how Blacks are still stereotyped and like called out on other things that shouldn't be happening.
My idea of progress at Westminster, I think of an anecdote that first comes to mind. In sophomore year, the Black Affinity group was created by 3 seniors, Maya Ruffin, Adina Ajike, and Giovanni Hamilton. And I think they created this space as a space for Black students to come together, talk about their shared identity, and just kind of be with each other. And that's a really powerful thing. And I remember every visit day, we have a club fair. And so pre-COVID, the club fair would happen in Gund dining room, I believe, and there would be different stations. There'd be, well, not just clubs, but like sports. So like a cross team might have a little table, and then the Black Affinity group had their own table. I remember being there, and there's an alum, and I think their kids go here currently, but there's an alum, and they came up to us, and we started talking about about the bag and kind of what it meant, and he was like, wow, it's really interesting, because we didn't have that kind of, for us at least, him being a black student, black students at his time at Westminster, that wasn't a thing then. And sure, that's progress, and I think that that's great, and I love having the space and being with everyone that's in bag, that's in the audience, that's watching via Zoom, and everyone on the stage. But for me, I think my idea of progress at Westminster is to come to a place where the students that are part of this group don't feel the need to unpackage and share their trauma with the entire school, just to spark a conversation. For me, my idea of progress is that we come to a place where this doesn't necessarily need to happen, where people don't need to be shocked and tell me that this was eye-opening afterwards to actually understand what we were talking about in the chapel. I want to come to a place where Black history isn't a trend or an infographic on your Instagram story post. I want it to be like something you consciously think about, and just being recognized as a person, and being recognized that I am Black and I am still a person. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me. That's my idea of progress, where we can come to that state. And with that, I believe we've reached the end of our time. Thank you to Ms. Stevens, Mr. Pringle, Mr. Williams, Mr. Rashid, and Mr. Hughley, and Ms. McGuigan, who all helped us bring this chapel together. And thank you, everyone, and have a great day.